The Brunali Empire trembled as Earth's gargantuan ancient supercarrier Enterprise cast a menacing shadow across the galactic expanse, its advanced weaponry making the Brunali fleet look like a child's bath toys. Captain Zachary Bennett sat in his dimly lit quarters, steel-grey eyes poring over archaic tactical manuals and forgotten historical records. The Enterprise's antiquated computer interfaces illuminated his furrowed brow. A lifetime of battles etched across his weathered face. His calloused fingers traced the yellowed pages, urgency quickening his pulse. Strange whispers trickled in from uncharted frontiers, reports of sleek alien ships advanced beyond human comprehension, of the ruthless Brunali race, hell-bent on crushing humanity beneath their heel. Zachary's bones ached with certainty. War was coming. The Enterprise was humanity's last hope. A sudden electronic chime pierced the heavy silence. An urgent message from Earth Alliance Command splashed across the computer screen. Captain Bennett, the Brunali are preparing a massive invasion fleet. Take the Enterprise to the edge of Alliance space. You must stop them at all costs. If you fail, humanity will burn. The survival of our entire species rests on your shoulders. Godspeed. Zachary's jaw tightened. He reached for the intercom. "All hands battle stations," he barked. "We have our orders. Humanity faces its darkest hour. But we will not go quietly into the night. This is what we've trained for, what we were born for. The Brunali want a fight? Then let's give them a war they'll never forget. For Earth." A chorus of cheers echoed through the ship's halls as the Enterprise's mighty engines roared to life. Humanity's last champion surged forth to meet its destiny among the stars. As the Enterprise navigated through the inky void, an unsettling sensation crept over Zachary. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, a prickling feeling that they were not alone in the vast expanse. He leaned forward, his eyes scanning the view screen. "Initiate radio silence," he ordered, his voice low and steady, "and plot a series of random jumps. We can't take any chances." The crew worked diligently, their fingers dancing across the ship's controls. The Enterprise lurched as it leaped through space, its movements erratic and unpredictable. Days crawled by, the tension on the ship palpable. The crew's nerves were stretched thin, their eyes darting to the radar at the slightest sound. Late one night, as Zachary sat alone on the bridge, a shrill alarm pierced the silence. His heart raced as he stared at the proximity alert, a massive shape looming on the screen. The vessel seemed to materialize out of the darkness, its sleek form dwarfing the Enterprise. Zachary's mouth went dry. The Brunali had found them. They had underestimated their enemy, and now they were paying the price. "Evasive maneuvers!" he shouted, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. The Enterprise veered sharply, but the Brunali ship matched its movements with ease. It was like a predator playing with its food, a cruel game of cat and mouse. Zachary's finger hovered over the weapons controls, ready to give the order to attack. But before he could act, a deep voice filled the bridge. "Captain Bennett, I am Lyra, commander of the Brunali fleet. You have entered our territory uninvited. Stand down and prepare to be boarded, or face the consequences." Zachary's mind whirled. Surrender meant losing the Enterprise and failing their mission, but engaging the Brunali ship was a death sentence. As he hesitated, a low hum filled the air. The alien vessel was powering up its weapons, the energy making Zachary's skin crawl. The seconds ticked by, each one an eternity. The fate of his crew, and possibly all of humanity, rested on his next decision. Zachary's gaze locked on the view screen, the Brunali ship filling his vision. He had to make a choice, and he had to make it now. Zachary's heart pounded as his finger hovered over the weapons control. In a split-second decision, he slammed his palm down. "Fire EMP torpedoes!" The crew sprang into action, their fingers flying across the consoles. A volley of shimmering blue torpedoes streaked from the Enterprise's launch bays, hurtling towards the looming Brunali ship. For a moment, the bridge fell silent, the crew holding their breath as they watched the torpedo's trajectory. Then, a flash of blinding light erupted across the alien vessel's hull. Its lights flickered and died, leaving it drifting helplessly in the void. "It worked," Zachary breathed, hardly daring to believe their luck. "Helmsman, get us out of here, maximum warp." The Enterprise surged forward, the stars blurring into streaks of light as it leaped to light speed. The crew erupted into cheers, the tension of the past few minutes melting into relief. Hours later, as the adrenaline began to fade, Zachary called for a damage report. The crew worked diligently, assessing the ship's systems and hull integrity. Lieutenant Commander Olivia Reeves, the Enterprise's chief engineer, approached Zachary with a grim expression. "Captain, we have a problem." Zachary's stomach twisted. "What is it?" "The Brunali ship. It's still with us. Somehow they managed to latch onto our hull with some kind of advanced tractor beam just before we jumped to warp." A chill ran down Zachary's spine. "You mean they're being dragged along with us?" Olivia nodded, her face pale. "And that's not all. Based on our current trajectory, we're headed straight for Earth." Zachary's mouth went dry. They had been so focused on escaping the Brunali that they hadn't considered the consequences of leading them directly to humanity's homeworld. He ran a hand over his face, his mind racing. They couldn't drop out of warp and risk another confrontation, but they couldn't let the Brunali reach Earth either. "We continue on course," he said finally, his voice heavy. "We'll use the time to come up with a plan, find a way to shake them off before we reach Alliance space." As the days crawled by, an eerie atmosphere settled over the Enterprise. Crew members whispered of strange noises in the corridors, of shadows moving in the corners of their eyes. Equipment malfunctioned at random, consoles flickering, and doors jamming without explanation. Zachary couldn't shake the feeling that the Brunali were somehow infiltrating the ship, even though they had no evidence of a breach. Paranoia crept through the ranks, the crew jumping at every unexpected sound or flicker of light. As they hurtled through the darkness, the spectre of the Brunali ship looming just outside their walls, Zachary knew they were racing against time. They had to find a way to sever the alien vessel's grip and protect Earth before it was too late. As the Enterprise hurtled through the void, the weight of his decision pressed down on Zachary's shoulders. Earth's cerulean globe had been tantalizingly close, a beacon of hope and safety after their harrowing encounter with the Brunali. But the spectre of the alien ship, still clinging to their hull like a malevolent parasite, had forced his hand. He could not, would not, lead this threat to humanity's doorstep. With a heavy heart, Zachary diverted the Enterprise's course, steering them towards a remote and lifeless star system. The crew worked in tense silence, their faces drawn and pale under the flickering lights of the bridge. Once they reached the desolate stretch of space, Zachary gathered his officers, his voice low and urgent. "We have one chance to shake off the Brunali," he said, his eyes hard as flint. "We're going to cut power to the ship, play dead. With any luck, they'll detach to investigate and we can catch them off guard." The plan was desperate, risky, but they had no other choice. The crew nodded grimly, their hands white-knuckled on their stations. The Enterprise powered down, its mighty engines falling silent, its lights dimming to a faint, eerie glow. The ancient supercarrier drifted like a ghost ship, its corridors empty and echoing with the groans of settling metal. Zachary and his crew took their positions, weapons drawn and aimed at the airlock. They hardly dared to breathe, straining their ears for any sound of the Brunali's approach. Minutes stretched into hours, the tension ratcheting higher with each passing moment. Sweat beaded on Zachary's brow, his finger hovering over the trigger of his plasma rifle. Suddenly a searing white light exploded through the ship, blinding in its intensity. The Enterprise lurched violently as a shockwave slammed into its hull, throwing the crew from their feet. Zachary struggled to stand, his head ringing, his vision swimming with spots. Cold dread seeped into his veins as he realized the terrible truth. The Brunali had seen through their ruse. They had opened fire on the defenseless Enterprise, exploiting its vulnerability with ruthless precision. Alarms shrieked to life as the ship's systems struggled to come back online. damage reports flooding the screens. Entire decks had been vaporized, gaping holes torn in the Enterprise's once mighty hull. As Zachary fought to rally his stunned crew, the comm system crackled with a chilling transmission, the voice dripping with cruel amusement. "Foolish humans," it purred, each word a razor-edged barb. "Did you really think you could deceive us so easily? We have been studying you for centuries, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Your primitive ship is no match for our technology. Surrender now, and we may spare your lives." Zachary's jaw clenched, a white-hot fury burning in his chest. Surrender was not an option, not while a single member of his crew still drew breath. He turned to his officers, his voice sharp as a blade. "Prepare for boarding action," he ordered, his eyes hard and unforgiving. "We'll take the fight to the Brunali, buy time for the wounded to evacuate." As he strapped on his combat armor and checked his weapons, a grim certainty settled over Zachary. This was only the beginning, a single skirmish in a war that would decide the fate of the Enterprise, of Earth, of all humanity. And he would be damned if he let the Brunali win. The Brunali boarders surged through the Enterprise's breached hull, their sleek obsidian armor glinting in the dim emergency lighting. Zachary and his crew fell back, trading shots with the invaders as they retreated deeper into the ship. "Fall back to Junction Delta 7, Zachary barked into his comm, his voice hoarse from the acrid smoke filling the corridors. The Enterprise's labyrinthine layout, once a source of pride, now became their greatest asset. The crew took up defensive positions in the narrow passageway, using overturned cargo crates and debris as makeshift barricades. They poured plasma fire into the advancing Brunali, the air thick with the stench of burning metal and flesh. Zachary's comm crackled to life. "Captain, the last evac shuttle is away, hangar bay clear." A grim smile tugged at his lips. His crew was safe, but the fight was far from over. "Engine room breach detected," the ship's AI intoned, its voice eerily calm amidst the chaos. "Brunali forces attempting to access self-destruct controls." Zachary's blood ran cold. The Enterprise's advanced technology, the culmination of centuries of human ingenuity, could not be allowed to fall into enemy hands. He turned to his XO, Lieutenant Commander Reeves, her face smudged with soot and blood. "Get the rest of the crew to the escape pods. I'm heading to the engine room." Reeves' eyes widened. "Captain, you can't—" "That's an order, Commander," Zachary snapped, his voice brooking no argument. "I'll trigger the self-destruct manually. Buy me as much time as you can." With a final nod, he turned and sprinted down the corridor, the sounds of battle fading behind him. The ship's once pristine halls were now a war zone, the bulkheads scarred by plasma burns and littered with the bodies of the fallen. As he fought his way towards the engine room, Zachary's mind raced with memories of the Enterprise's storied history. The countless lives saved, the discoveries made, the frontiers explored. The ship had been a beacon of hope in a galaxy full of darkness, a symbol of humanity's indomitable spirit. And now he was going to destroy it all. The engine room doors loomed before him, the Brunali already inside. Zachary charged forward, his plasma rifle spitting fire, cutting down the invaders with ruthless efficiency. He reached the self-destruct controls, his fingers flying over the interface. The countdown began, the ship's reactor core primed for detonation. Just as he was about to enter the final command, the doors hissed open. Lyra strode in, flanked by a squad of elite guards, their weapons trained on Zachary. In a burst of desperate speed, he lunged for the control panel, slamming his fist down on the blast door controls. The heavy doors slid shut, sealing them all inside. Lyra's eyes blazed with fury as she leveled her weapon at Zachary. "You've doomed us all, human," she snarled. Zachary met her gaze unflinching. "No, Lyra, I've doomed you." He glanced at the countdown, mere seconds remaining. "You may have won this battle, but humanity will never surrender. We will fight you to the last breath." The timer hit 0, and the world went white. The Enterprise erupted in a blinding flash of light, a miniature supernova that consumed the Brunali borders and Zachary in a fiery inferno. From the evacuation shuttles, the surviving crew watched in stunned silence as the once mighty supercarrier was reduced to a cloud of debris. Tears streamed down their faces as they witnessed the end of an era, the death of a legend. But even in their grief, they knew that Zachary's sacrifice had bought them a chance to warn Earth to prepare for the coming storm. The Brunali had struck the first blow, but humanity would rise to meet them, united in the face of annihilation. The Galactic Empire may have trembled at the sight of the Enterprise, but now it was humanity's turn to tremble at the prospect of a war they never saw coming, a war that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy and decide the fate of all sentient life. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.